Good evening, everybody. I declare the meeting open and call upon Councillor Winmar to make the welcome to country.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to acknowledge my elders past and present, and this meeting is on Noongar country. Ngalak nyining kurlong, kuro ngalak noich, neja Noongar boja. Noongar mot jerpen, nyining, neja ngalak kwabadok Noongar boja, kurlong. From the beginning of time to the end, this is Noongar country. Noongar people have been graceful keepers of our nation for many, many years. Ngala jerpen mamba boja ngalak bala mamba kwap ngala. Court Jerpen Nijagala Maya Nyining Noongar Boja. We respect the earth, our mother, and understand that we belong to her. She does not belong to us. In all her beauty we find comfort, well-being and life that creates a home for everyone that has become a keeper of Noongar country. Kinin encouraging Jerpen Nijawar Noongar Boja Ngala Maya Border. Look, listen, understand and embrace all the elements of Noongar country that is forever our home. Kai wanju ngan Barry Winmar, wajak balalong maman, ngan kot jerpen nunuk nija, Noongar boja, daji wangani noich, Noongar boja. Hello and welcome, my name is Barry Winmar. I'm a wajak balalong man, my heart is happy as we gathered on Noongar country and speaking here on Noongar country. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd also like to acknowledge that we meet here on the land of the Noongar people and pay my respects to elders past, present and those future emerging leaders. And now call upon Councillor S. Wood to read the dedication.
May we, the elected members of the City of Kwinana, have the wisdom to consider all matters before us with due consideration, integrity and respect for the Council Chamber. May the decisions made be in good faith and always in the best interest of the greater Kwinana community that we serve.
Thank you. And it's good to see a full contingent tonight with Councillor Dennis Wood back in the chair. Thank you. We have no attendance apologies or leaves of absence previously approved. There are no members of the public in the chamber. Item 6, receiving of a petition. We have received a petition from a Mr. Paul Murphy from Unit 9, 3 Rushbrook Drive, Wellard, in relation to a 3 to 4 person swing in the playground on the corner of Lambeth Circle and Beauchamp Loop in Wellard. I'm happy to receive the petition and have a report prepared for council. I'm happy to move that way. Seconded to Councillor Wood. Certainly. There are 12 signatures and they all seem to be from the same over 55s apartments which are close by to the park. Thank you. Put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. And in due course a report will be prepared and returned to council for consideration. We have no presentations, deputations. We have confirmation of our minutes from our meeting held on the 8th of June. Would somebody like to move those minutes? Happy to move. Councillor Winmar, seconded Councillor...
No, I can't do it. I wasn't there.
I didn't ask you to. Move Councillor S. Wood. Councillor Winmar, do you wish to... Sorry, S. Kearney. Anybody wish to speak on those minutes? Anybody wish to speak against? Put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Item 8, declarations of interest by members and city officers. I have an impartiality interest to declare in relation to item 17.1 as a member of the Outer Metropolitan JDAP committee, and we will be considering this this item in due course, subject to council's decision tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'll make the same
Impartiality
interest. Thank you.
Thank you. And the reason being?
Yes, that I'm a member of the JDAP and I'll be considering that in due course.
Thank you. Item 9, are there any requests for leave of absence? There is nothing on item 10 or 11. There are several items to do with the Audit and Risk Committee reports. What I would propose, or
I move that we move them on block, Your Worship.
so that's
12.1, 12.2, 12.3, 12.4, 12.5 and 12.6.
0.6, thank you. Before I do that, did anyone actually wish to speak on any of those items or ask any questions? Because I'll withdraw those from the en bloc movement of them. No? Thank you. We have a seconder. Seconded to Councillor Rouse. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak?
I will actually just briefly speak, Your Worship. This in relation to the One Council implementation project. It is certainly promising that that is currently running on track, and the city looks to go live as of the 1st of July.
Thank you,
Your Worship.
Councillor Rouse. Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. There's nothing in item 13 and 14. Item 15. Okay, good to go. Item 15.1 is, of course, I believe, the main item, of the most substantive one on the agenda tonight, and that is the adoption of the City of Kwinana's 2022-2023 annual budget. Now, do any councillors have any questions to ask in relation to this item?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you.
I have a number of questions in relation to the capital budget. I'll ask them separately, is probably the easiest way. I wonder if we could just have some information in relation to when the Honeywood Pavilion will actually be completed and open to the public, because I note that there is a remaining $593,000 allocated in the capital expenditure for that project.
Thank you, CEO or relevant officer.
Through you, Your Worship, we currently have Honeywood Pavilion expected to be completed by September. We're certainly working to a September date. The community development team are putting together plans to activate and make the building available from after that date.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Just in relation to the Kwinana South Station extensions and the works that are going on there, I know when that came to council there was 7% of that contract that wasn't funded by DFES because they took too long to actually come back to us with an answer. Do we know if they actually now have committed to covering the additional cost, or are we left with the bill because they took too long to respond?
Thank you, CEO.
Through you, Madam Chair. So we had a discussion with DFES at that point in time, and they agreed to fund that additional cost.
Deputy Mayor.
Medina Hall, I know that there's an item to replace the fans. I also know that a couple of council meetings ago we actually, via a budget variation, committed $50,000 to put in air conditioning to Medina Hall. Will it still be a requirement to have the fans replaced if we're actually going to air condition the facility, which I believe is also heating?
Through you, Your Worship, the fans was the original project. Fortunately, the fans, we've struggled to get fans, so that project was delayed and we've been able to cancel that in the last couple of weeks because they've not arrived. So they will be replaced with the air conditioners. This funding is LRCI 3, so federal funding. It will have to be reallocated in the new financial year.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I know that there's a $423,000 allocated to public open space renewals. I was wondering if either directors could have an indication of what areas they may include. I understand that there's obviously many parks that could include, but if you could answer the question, that'd be great.
We'll have to take that on notice, Your Worship. Unfortunately, the renewal budget includes a lot of really small projects, so it can be as small as seats or barbecues within a public open space. So it will be a lot of little things within there. So we'll have to produce that later.
Thank you.
And the last one, Your Worship, is in relation to the Wellard Oval lighting project. is what sort of funds are being committed by the city for this project? I believe that we got a CRFF something acronym grant for that. Is that correct?
Through you, Your Worship, at this stage, no city funds are allocated to that project. We've got 300,000 from the federal government through the LRCI3 program, and yes, we were successful in attaining state funding through the RF. I can't remember the acronym anymore. State funding through the Department of Sport and Rec for 1/3 of the project cost. So the city has withdrawn its funding from that project.
Can I just do a follow-up on that one, Deputy Mayor? It says, of course, in budget item 13, 450,000. Yet I understand there's from the information that's been provided that I'll talk about the key highlights of the budget. The actual figure I've got here is 426,000 towards the construction of the training and game lighting at the Wallard West Oval. Now that is the same oval we're talking about.
Yeah, I can confirm that is the same oval. The carry forward is related to the original budget. The funding we received from the state government was actually slightly less than the city's 150,000. So, depending on where the tender lands with the full cost, we'll see whether we need to make a slight adjustment at a later date. But at this stage, we expect the project cost to come within the federal funding and the state funding.
So the items that Deputy Mayor is speaking about are all the carry forward projects. Yep. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
One last one, Your Worship. I know that we've spent a considerable amount of money over the last couple of years planting new trees in specifically Bertram and other areas. And I know that there is a further 355,000 allocated in the budget for more trees. I was wondering if the director could give us a rough indication of how many trees we're actually planting each year.
To the Chair, not offhand. We have produced a report on this only in the last couple of weeks, so but we will be able to push that out to councillors later.
Any other questions? Thank you, Councillor Kearney.
Can I just go back to Medina Hall? If we're putting, if we've got the 15,000 for the fans, could we, 15 for the fans, can we, have we already got that money?
Through you, Your Worship, the funding is the federal funding, so it's essentially as long as it's a capital project related to community infrastructure or roads, we can allocate it as we see fit. So because we will not proceed with that project, we can reallocate it to another community or road project.
Just my thoughts were, not all the time do you need an air conditioning, so you could still utilise the fans by using them, because it would be a lot dearer to run aircon than it would be ceiling fans. And we don't have solar panels on the Medina Hall, do we? No. So if we've already got the money allocated, shouldn't we just put the fans in as well?
Through you, Your Worship, ultimately that's a decision for council to make. We'll, as officers, we'll come back with a recommendation. We'll consider whether fitting fans in and saving that electricity cost is a better use of the funds, or whether there's a higher priority community project that we might recommend. So we'll come back to council, but ultimately we can do the fans if that's preferred.
Okay. And the Aquatic Centre, the cafe, we're closing that down, aren't we? And we're redoing the kitchen?
Yes, so what we're doing there, so we're going out for a lease. So there is some money set aside for some works in that kitchen area. So really what I'm waiting is for that sort of at least to come back in, and if we need to do any works regarding remodelling the bench tops or moving counters, that's what those funds are for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Councillor D. Wood.
There's $60,000 committed to a toilet in the Rhodes Park. That seems to be an awful lot of money to spend on a toilet. Was it gold lined or something?
I seem to recall that you were the councillor who was asking for those facilities to be upgraded. So, well, we might need to take that on notice. Thank you. But I think there was some discussion about Rhodes Park being quite well used. Deputy Mayor?
Just in relation, I can't see that one just off the top of my head. I thought Rhodes Park, the main users of that facility were the rugby club, and they've moved to Wellard Oval, where we're now spending $450,000 to put lights up. So to renovate something that is now not being used, I find that interesting.
Sorry? Yeah, still does, yeah. All right, we'll take that on notice. Thank you. Any other?
Sorry, Your Worship, I do actually have one last question. Just in relation to the public open space renewals, I know that there was some commitment made by the CEO in relation to the upgrades that occurred to the park in Bertram on Johnson Road. I'm not sure that, I don't think that's actually what the park's called. There was a number of items that needed to occur, which I note haven't occurred. But I also note that there was a commitment to bring forward the replacement of the playground equipment, which I think was due to occur in 25-26, I believe, from memory. Has that actually been included into the budget to occur?
Thank you, CEO.
Through you, Madam Chair. The way that was going to be undertaken, Councillor, was using the current budget and just looking to reprioritise other projects within that. Or potentially using the community reserve.
Councillor Rouse.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Just in relation to fees and charges, will there be a cost for a permit to permit people to have more than 2 cats?
Through you, Your Worship, there is a cost associated with a permit for more than 2 cats, yes.
I couldn't quite see it in the report under cats. Can you advise what that cost would be?
I believe it's consistent with the dogs registration process, which will be, I think it's around $80, but I'd have to take that on notice and provide that advice.
Thank you.
Back to the toilets again. I've got no objection to the upgrade of the toilet block, but I only was querying the amount, not the need to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Any other questions, Deputy Mayor?
Sure, Your Worship. I just wonder if one of the directors could just clarify for me the cost of hiring the city's community bus and the fees and charges. I just note that the table of fees and charges is actually quite difficult to read.
Yeah, so off the top of my head, and I may be slightly wrong, but there's a bond of $500, and then there is a community charge and a commercial charge, and I think the community charge is around $27, but obviously there's fuel costs and driver costs and so forth. So, but I can provide that information later, but I'm pretty sure that's correct.
So is that $27 an hour? You're talking about an hour? Hourly rate?
Yes, I'll have to
That's
have
right,
to look
just
at that.
clarifying that. Is there a...
So I just had a question from Councillor Kearney there. Is that mileage? So obviously there's a fuel cost on top of that higher cost.
Anything further? Here's your opportunity, councillors. We're passing our budget for the next 12 months. If there's anything there that you'd like to raise, the officers, I know that we have had comprehensive workshops on the budget, but there's always something that pops up. We can always take it on notice. Councillor Kearney.
Sorry, since you said that, can I just ask about Pace Road Car Park? What's happening with that? What are they doing? Sorry.
Thank you.
Now, through you, Your Worship, the Pace Road car park, it is at the point where it needs resurfacing. The main trigger for looking at this car park was the damage to the car park because of the Moreton Bay fig trees near the shops. So we have to do something to remove the trip hazard. As part of looking at that and trying to develop a plan for addressing the problem with the trees, it's given us an opportunity to look at the master plan and the recently developed place plan for Pace Road. So we are working with the place leader for the Medina area and working with members of the community to develop up a plan of what we'll do. So the funding we've got, it's the Pace Road car park funding is LRCI. We also have some car park general funding through the renewal budget, and we'll allocate some additional funding in this coming financial year to bring it together as a single project. So we're likely to see some rearrangement of the car park with some additional grass area, particularly in front of either in front of the War Memorial or adjusting the location of the War Memorial so that it's not sitting in a car park, and then some more sensible ways to drive around and make it a more usable space.
I think Centre Call, Councillor Kearney, there's been quite a bit of input from the Medina residents group on what to do with the car park and make it more activated. Thank you, Councillor Rouse.
Just to follow up on my cat question, I can see under the dogs that there's dog registration. 3 dog applications up to 6 dogs for $235, but I cannot see that under the cats. I've got that page 128 of the agenda. Can we just clarify that, please?
It's probably something we can't take on notice because we want to make sure it's included.
I don't have the same numbering.
Yes, if you just go to page 128, so registration fee for cat for 1 year is $20.
Can you answer the question?
Because I can't find it. It's 3 cats.
Yeah, 3 minutes. Chair. So, Councillor, are you asking regarding if they've got more than 1 cat?
2.
Yeah. So the way it's, and if you look at the cat local law as well, so the way it's written is that they would be registering the other cat. So it's the cat. Each cat gets registered.
So there wouldn't be a cost for the permit to have more than 2 cats. That's what we're requiring people.
No, so you register the cat.
Just need the registration.
Correct.
Councillor
Worship.
Wood.
Just a clarification on the word cat, because we don't want tigers in a house, or panthers, or whatever. It should be domestic animals such as cats, something like that. Just a clarification.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think you'll find, Councillor, it's actually illegal to have those animals, so I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Thank you. Councillor Eswood.
Can I just make an inquiry about the 60-odd thousand that's being spent on the animal shelter and what that entails?
Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship, they're actually carried forward funds left over from some minor works we did to the animal shelter this past financial year. So we did, offhand, I don't know all the works, but we did some work to improve the safety for the City Assist team, but also to improve the welfare for the animals, particularly over summer. The unspent funds are going to be used to do some design work. We have in the long-term financial plan in the next couple of years some funds allocated to the replacement of the pound facility. We don't have a scope for that. We're not sure where we're going to set it. Not sure what it will look like. So to develop that up and confirm how much money really needs to be allocated to that, we need to employ an architect or a building designer to do that work for us. So these funds, the remaining funds for that project, will be allocated to do the design work.
And just following up from a question from Deputy Mayor about the hire of the community van or community bus, the fee is $27.20, so Mr Fisher was very close with his recollection of the fee per hour. Are there any other questions? If not, would somebody like to move the recommendation in its entirety? Moved Councillor D. Wood. Seconded to Councillor S. Wood. Councillor D. Wood, do you wish to speak on the budget? Councillor S. Wood.
Just to thank the staff who have obviously spent a huge amount of time putting this together, and also to thank them for our many elected member briefing sessions where they went through it with us.
Would anybody wish to speak against the budget?
Your Worship, could I actually move that we suspend standing orders so any other councillors may wish to speak for the budget, Your Worship?
Thank you. Do we have a seconder to suspend standing orders? A seconder to Councillor Rouse. All in favour? Against? So carried. Thank you. So standing orders have been suspended. So we've had a mover and a seconder. Would somebody like to speak against the budget? Would somebody like to speak for?
I'll speak for it, Your Worship. I think obviously the rate that the community is being charged has been fairly spoken about in recent time via social media. But ultimately we need to strike the right rate so we have the right amount of money so we can do all these things. And I guess as I've alluded to in the number of questions that I asked clarifying various parts of the capital budget, which I think for the average, not the average ratepayer, for any ratepayer, generally what they see as far as value for money is those things that they see on a regular basis in their local community. A new park bench, a new slide, a new barbecue, an upgrade to a footpath, an upgrade to a road, etc., etc. Obviously, lots of families are finding it tough at the moment in relation to the cost of living. I do note that the rate that we have finished up on is much lower than inflation, so not inflation, CPI, which is, I guess, somewhat of a consolation. I also would like to acknowledge the efforts and work that the city's officers have done in relation to putting together the budget. Certainly it's a fairly large process, and it's certainly much easier now than it was when I first got on council in the process to actually bring it to fruition. So yeah, I support the budget as it is, and there's some great initiatives that the city will be delivering, and I'm sure after the budget is passed, if it's passed, you'll say some other great things, Your Worship.
Thank you. Would somebody like to speak for the budget? Anybody else wish to speak?
I believe our rate increases, you can correct me on this, is only just over $1 a week for the average.
$1.08 per week for an average residential
just over
property.
$1 a week for average persons. And to note that the government has actually put the emergency services levy up 5%. So we've been very careful in what we've done with our budget and with the rate increase. A lot of thought and care has gone into it with the community in mind.
Thank you very much. Councillor Winmar?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to reiterate the words of the Deputy Mayor. This was a difficult budget, and it's echoing the words of the current economic climate and the pressures on families. And it's encouraging, if you look into the budget and some of the capital expenditure, there are actually items, as Deputy Mayor alluded to, that they can actually see, and they've got an opportunity to watch and develop and grow to actually improve the city of Kwinana for all residents. And I also like to congratulate the officers and the CEO with the restrictions and some of the comments that have come through on social media with any situation where there may be a rate rise. And once again, I commend my councillors as well, and I applaud them for coming up with a reasonable rate that wasn't an extra pressure on families' budgets. So thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Rouse, I believe you were...
Yeah, just briefly, Your Worship. I mean, echo as well the comments made previously. We start our budget process basically straight after we finish the budget process from the previous year. So councillors are very well briefed. We're given a lot of information. This budget is coming on the back of our strategic community plan, which is our most important document, and all our other plans feed from that. And the city undertook extensive consultation for that strategic community plan, more so than we've ever done so before. And that plan and this budget therefore echoes that consultation process and the sentiments of our community of what they wanted. They want our parks, they want our ovals to be maintained, they want a well-stocked library and well-serviced community centres. Unfortunately, the state government has chosen to increase electricity, and we need to keep the lights on. The cost of fuel has gone up, and we need to be able to service our parks and have our city assist respond to some calls. This federal government has raised superannuation, so we need to be paying our staff, and we've just gone through those negotiations with our staff as well. So, I don't think any of us would have thought a year ago that we'd be standing here and have to raise rates to the level that they have, but we have determined, the city staff have determined, councillors determined that this is the best for the future for our residents. This helps us not only maintain the now, but also plan and maintain for the future. So, yeah, I support the budget as is, Your Worship.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to say anything? If not, we'll move back to. Thank you. Seconded. All in favour? Against? So moved. So we've had a mover and a seconder. Nobody wished to speak against the budget. Therefore, I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. And in doing so, I would also just like to say a few words in relation to this very important document. So the City of Kwinana's 2022-23 budget has been carefully crafted to balance the community's vision and expectations for quality service for Kwinana with the impact of external influences such as inflation, while managing the complex needs and challenges associated with the city's expansion and fast-paced growth. And despite the pressure to increase the rates in line with CPI, the city has taken a conservative approach to its budget preparation for the 22-23 financial year. Increasing costs such as electricity, labour, construction costs, building materials and petrol, and the list goes on, have had a big impact on the financial sustainability of the city, but we will continue to find efficiencies in the organisation, and we're committed to providing the same level of service expected by the community. This budget is designed to achieve the community vision, as mentioned by Councillor Rouse, outlined in its strategic community plan to create a unique and livable city celebrated for and connected by its diversity, natural beauty and economic opportunities. The budget not only takes into consideration the city's strategic community plan, but also its long-term financial plan, detailed business cases, organisational service reviews and budget workshops. From 2009 to 2019, the city has grown by over 17,000 people and continues to grow at a very fast pace. So to ensure that the city is ahead of this growth and balancing the increasing requirements for infrastructure and demands for quality community facilities and services, the city resolved that the average rate increase will be 3.95% or $1.08 per week for an average residential property, with the exception, of course, of those rate categories affected by the rates rationalisation strategy. This budget includes some much sought after community projects, with some of the key highlights of the budget included and of course were spoken about in the question time. $3.7 million to complete the construction of the pavilion at the Honeywood Primary School Oval, funded by the Developer Contribution Scheme. $3.3 million towards road upgrades and renewables, including resurfacing, strengthening and upgrading of the roads within that catchment. $910,000 for building renewals, including major repairs and replacements of building components. $725,000 to complete the construction of the Kwinana South Fire Station Replacement Building. $504,000 for the annual community events program. And as we know, the community through our strategic plan had said that they were happy to have an increase in our community events. And the same with the $450,000 to commence planning for the Kwinana Loop Trail Master Plan. $450,000 towards the construction of the Junior Bike Safety Track Barbecue and Recreational Area, with traffic lights and street signs to develop road sense in young riders, and this will be built on Callista Oval. I'm not sure if it's public knowledge now, if we're able to speak about the grant we received today. Sorry? We'll wait on that, thank you. and we've got 425,000 towards the construction of training and game lighting at the Wellard West Oval, just spoken about, and $150,000 towards the Park for People program, which will see continued upgrades of the city's parks and playground equipment. And a question has been asked about which parks they will be and will be provided to councillors. The city has worked hard to create a budget that allows us to provide a wide range of value for money services within our diverse community. And as always, on behalf of the Kwinana community, I would like to acknowledge the efforts of my fellow councillors, the CEO and the executive and all the staff of the city who work tirelessly to find smarter, better and cheaper ways to conduct business. A special mention needs to be made of the finance team led by our Chief Financial Officer Stacey Hobbins, who has done exceptional work to produce a balanced budget during an extremely busy period. The staff's dedication and professionalism is to be commended. I'd also say that I speak for all elected members when I say that this time of the year is challenging, and as we know, there are inflation and household costs being imposed, but we also have a responsibility to pass a budget that addresses the city's expansion and corresponding levels of service and infrastructure. I also note that we do have a comprehensive communication strategy to go out with the budget. So I therefore and hereby commend the budget tabled and look forward to an exciting and productive year ahead for the residents and businesses in Kwinana. Thank you. And we now go on to item 16.1, which is the Wellard Primary School environmental offset. I'll just clarify, the Wellard Primary School is not the Wellard Primary School in Emerald Park. It's the new Wellard Primary School, yet to be given its official name, but it's the one in the Wellard village. Thank you. Exciting item. Are there any questions? We have a recommendation.
I'll move that, Your Worship.
Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded at Councillor S. Wood. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak on the item?
Just briefly, Your Worship. This is actually great news for the community in that obviously there was the need to knock over some bush where the new primary school is going. And I think it could have been quite too easy for the government to actually reallocate this land to the Department of Communities and fill it full of houses. So it is good that that it is being retained, Your Worship. Though I do note that it was only a couple of years ago that yourself and Councillor Rouse and myself met with the Minister's Chief of Staff, and they said there was no requirement for a primary school in the village for at least the next 5 to 10 years, and that was only 2 years ago, Your Worship. So, but this is fantastic news.
Is that also about a high school as well? Thank you. Councillor S. Wood.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's really exciting. We have 4 hectares of pristine bushland with Jarrah, Chewett and Marrie, and it's going to be managed now forever in perpetuity by the council. And the other good thing is it's only 1 kilometre approximately away from where the nesting site of the black cockatoos was going to be, or previously, where the school is going to be built, and it's only 1 kilometre away. So hopefully with the council doing a lot of work there, the black cockatoos will find a very happy home.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against the item? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. And in doing so, thank the officers for the work that they have done and the negotiations with the Department of Education in bringing this concept to fruition for the betterment of our community. And it also provides a really good noise buffer from Wellard Road as well. Item 17.1 is the Joint Development Assessment Panel Child Care Centre for Lot 9001 Lion Road, Wandian, noting that Councillor Rouse and I have declared an impartiality interest but can take part in this meeting. Are there any questions? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Your Worship. I have a question for Mrs. Cook in relation to the entrance of this facility, that I note that it is very close to the existing primary school's entrance and also kiss and drop area, and the additional cars that obviously will be funneled into this area once this childcare centre is complete may cause some further traffic concerns. Can you maybe give us a little bit of how that won't occur? What can be done to ensure that it doesn't occur?
Through you, Your Worship, the process has been quite extensive, with our city engineers' involvement in the assessment of the traffic impact assessment and the applicants, to look at ensuring that, particularly during the peak times of school drop-off and pick-up, that the proposed childcare centre would be able to be accommodated. Certainly the road capacity within the precinct indicates that both uses can be in their locations and operating at the same time without any undue sort of capacity issues. But we've worked with the applicant to ensure that the peak time, being the morning peak in particular, be extended so that that risk is reduced somewhat, with a starting time of the childcare centre being brought earlier, so that the actual time span of that peak period is increased and provide opportunity for parents dropping off to do so before the school peak time. It certainly will provide for a vibrant precinct going forward, and will also contribute to multi-purpose visits to the site. So people using the childcare centre can use a school and vice versa, to enable those families with children of different ages to be accommodated. So we expect that will form part of that, I guess, managing the traffic scenario within the precinct.
Can I just have a follow-on question, just on that reciprocal use of the two car parks for the primary school and the childcare centre? Is that under some kind of an agreement, formal agreement, like a reciprocal agreement in relation to the use of the surplus car park at all, or did I misunderstand that?
Through you, Worship, there's no agreement in place regarding a reciprocal arrangement of car parking. The application for the childcare centre was assessed on its merits. The car parking provided on site meets the requirements of the actual childcare centre. It was more around making sure the peak times of the school and the childcare centre, where possible, were broadened out to enable traffic to flow more freely through those peak times.
Thank you. We have a recommendation. Somebody like to move that way? Moved Councillor Rouse. Do we have a seconder? Seconder, Councillor S. Kearney. Councillor Rouse, do you wish to speak on the item?
No, thank you, Worship. I'll be considering this in the JDAP. So,
Thank you, Councillor Kearney. Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Item 17.2 is a supply, delivery and application of a hot bituminous concrete. Do noting there is a confidential attachment to this item. Are there any questions? If not, we have a recommendation. Councillor Winmar, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor. Councillor Winmar or Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak on the item? No, thank you. Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Item 17.3 is a supply of road stabilisation services, and again another confidential attachment. Any questions of the officers? Would somebody like to move that way? Moved Councillor Winmar, seconded Councillor S. Wood. Either councillors wish to speak on the item? Anyone wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. I feel like deja vu. 18.1, CAT Amendment Local Law for 2022. Are there any questions on this item? Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to see clarification from the city. What percentage of the city's reserves are covered by the cat prohibition order being proposed here? And for the benefit of our residents, could you please explain the selection criteria that informed why some have been chosen here and not others at this point in time?
Through you, Your Worship, I'll take the second question first. In terms of the process by which reserves have been identified as cat prohibited areas, essentially two criteria were considered. First being which of the reserves or bushland areas have high fauna habitat in terms of what we're aware of. So as you're aware, the cat local law is intended to protect our local fauna. So that was one of the key criteria in identifying which are the reserves that would be considered. And the other is around the ease of access and being able to undertake the actual trapping requirements associated with that. So areas that would be difficult to access would obviously be harder to actually create cat prohibited areas. So we wanted to ensure that the reserves that were identified can actually can achieve the outcome that we're looking for. So we identified only those reserves that we could start off with, where we knew that we could resource cat trapping programs, signage, and other initiatives to support the cat local law. So we have only limited to the number of reserves in the council report today. In terms of the percentage, I would have to take that on notice in terms of the land area that the reserves encompass in terms of our overall reserve. That's a difficult question to answer.
And just one follow-up question, if I may. The officer's report references a potential future review, I guess, into the actual reserves that are come under the cat prohibition order. What is the, I guess, estimated time frame for when, I guess, that review would be? I note that residents may be interested in lot 164, which we, in reference to the early decision around the Willard School site, perhaps being included in the future.
Through you, Your Worship, the process would be some time away, given that the amendment will take some time to go through advertising and then go through a gazettal process of its own to be enacted. We would provide some time through the council budgeting process and resourcing arrangements to see the effectiveness of the program at the reserves that have been identified in the first instance, and on that basis then be able to come back to council with a proposal to expand that into other reserves, again subject to resourcing and funding arrangements that are available. The expansion would be limited to reserves that the city is managing, and as such, lot 164, whilst we've just considered and council has resolved to support the management of that site for conservation purposes, that's not with the city as yet. That will take some time for it to be handed over from the Department of Education to the city for conservation purposes, and will require it to be fenced and for remediation of that site to occur in terms in line with the requirements of the federal government offset obligation that has been set, and where it would be looking to work on that site to achieve. So that would be our primary objective for that site, and then once we're feeling that the conservation objectives on site have been achieved, that could enter into that program of reserves where they are cat prohibited areas once the fencing or other initiatives come into play with respect to that conservation reserve. So timing wise, couple of years at least. I wouldn't want to be bringing back an amendment to this cat local law so quickly after this amendment. Should this amendment be resolved, we would require some time to embed the cat prohibited areas into our practice and determine the effectiveness of that in achieving its objectives.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rouse? I noticed that probably similar to what you were proposing. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Oh, I have one. Sorry, in relation to the trapping of, I suppose, feral cats in those reserves, I note, is it only the environmental officers tasked to do that, given its reserves, or is it really city assist or shared use?
Through you, Your Worship, the current arrangement is between the two teams, so the environmental officers, including the environmental field officers, as well as City Assist, are engaged in identifying where the cat traps would be located, and then City Assist officers would be monitoring those cat traps to ensure that we have a very appropriate program so that cats, if they are trapped, are quickly attended to and removed from the site. So, yeah, it's a combination of resources in that area.
Thank you. And I know that there is a comprehensive frequently asked question sheet. Will that be part of the communication that will go out?
Yes, Your Worship, that will be communicated as part of this next phase to help explain to the community why the cat local law has now been amended so quickly after the cat local law was gazetted. So we can explain the undertaking that was required to be made in terms of the changes and the opportunity that it presents in introducing the cat prohibited areas into the amendment.
And I do note with interest that the cities of Gosnells and Fremantle are also endeavouring to try and bring in similar laws. Councillor Rouse?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. In regards to cat trapping, in specifically feral cats, the city officers can trap feral cats if there's an identified problem in any part of the city, or is that only going to be to these restricted areas?
The cat prohibited areas is restricted to these areas only. If a cat is identified as a nuisance and there's a complaint and the cat is accessible, then the City Assist officers obviously will be called out to site to be able to undertake any necessary, seizing of the cat if it's possible.
Yeah, so more so what I was saying is that for feral cats, say there's an outbreak, if you like, in the future in an area of bushland that is not on our register, that could still be trapped.
We do have a cat trapping program generally that would be part of, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, were you going to ask?
Thank you. Just in relation to the cat trapping, some residents may be interested in what efforts are undertaken to ensure, other native wildlife don't enter these traps, and if they do, what is the process that happens?
The traps are specifically for the luring of cats to protect the other wildlife. So I would assume from a manufacturing point of view and the way it's handled, it has certain triggers associated with the size and the behaviours of a cat as opposed to others. Should another animal be caught, then obviously we would attend to it as we would any animal, including the cat. It's not to harm the animal; it's to remove them from that space. So the cat trap is not intended and is not operational in a sense to actually cause any harm to any animal. So essentially, if another animal was to be caught through the trap, it would be, released back into the bush. However, the cat would be retained and taken to the animal shelter.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? I do note that we have an alternative elected member's recommendation. Were you going to proceed with that, Councillor Rouse?
Yes, Your Worship. I'd like to move that the officer's recommendation with an amendment, and that amendment being that to remove Wells Park from the cat prohibited areas and include Henley Reserve in Wellard.
And do we have a seconder? Thank you. Would you like to speak to your alternative, please?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Obviously, it's disappointing for me and the rest of the council to be actually have to stand up here and amend our local laws so soon after passing those. Obviously, we would like to take these prohibited areas further, but I can understand our need for caution when approaching, considering that Joint Standing Committee on Delegated Authority has already rejected one of our proposed laws. So by proposing that Wells Park be removed, that was my relation to my questions in relation to cat trapping. Most of those cats down at Wells Park would not be domestic cats, they would be feral cats, and so if they were causing problems, they could be trapped anyway under the cat trapping program that we have in place. My reasoning for Henley Reserve is that the city is proceeding through through quite an extensive rehabilitation, lots of tree planting from our local community to rehabilitate that area, and which I'm presuming will, in the coming years, bring a lot of native fauna back to that area. So that's why I'm proposing that amendment, Your Worship.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, was it you? Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Okay. Move now to item 18.2, accounts for payment for month ending 31st of May. Are there any questions on any of those accounts? If not, we have a recommendation. Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Winmar. Do either councillors wish to speak? Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Yep. Thank you. Item 18.3 is the sale of land for unpaid rates and charges. Are there any questions on the officer's recommendation? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Your Worship. I have a question in relation to, well, I actually don't need to name the property because it's the same question regardless of the property. In going through the agenda, I was looking at the properties via a map to see where they were. And I know that one of them had actually sold. And so my question to the CEO is what protections does the city have in place if the owner of those properties that are due to be sold to recoup the cost of the rates between us going to court and actually it happening? So what exactly, what's stopping someone selling the property without the city being able to recoup the money?
Thank you. CEO?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So there's two parts to that. The first is if the outstanding rates amounts is more than $10,000, a caveat is placed against the property. If it is less than $10,000, in which case we do have some of those properties which relate to that. Then if a property is sold at the time of sale, there is a process where rates are then cleared against the owner of that property as part of the legal transfer, and that's at that stage where the city then recovers the rates.
Does that satisfy your inquiry? Thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, we have a recommendation. I'll move the recommendation. Seconded Councillor Winmar. Thank you. Thank you. Happy to move the recommendation. Look, it's not something that we take lightly. especially at this time of year, in fact, any time of the year. But as the officers, well, because of the confidential attachments that form part of this that we have read, there has been significant efforts over long periods of time to try and to meet, to discuss, to put in payment plans, to try and help the owners of these homes to try and at least assist with deflaying some of these rate costs. But at the end of the day, their rates owed not to council, it's community funds. It's the community that misses out on this money. So therefore, I will support the officer's recommendation. Councillor Winmar? Anybody wish to speak against? If not, I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Item 18.4 is our monthly financial report for April. Are there any questions on those finances? If not, we have a recommendation. Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Winmar. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak on the item? Councillor Winmar, anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Item 18.5 is the annual review of delegated authority for 21-22. Should that be 22-23? Okay. It's okay. Are there any questions on this item? If not, we have a recommendation.
Could I just have the CEO clarify the memorandum of understanding? I didn't quite understand that delegation. That it's page 159, I think. Memorandum of understanding that the CEO has the right to perform. You can take it on notice if you wish.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm not quite sure which one you're referring to. I can take it on notice, but in general, it's basically saying that the CEO has the ability to enter into a memorandum of understanding, depending upon what the activity is. I'm just not quite sure which one it is. We'll have to check on that.
It's fair to say memorandum of understanding doesn't necessarily have a legal
It's got no
holding.
legal binding.
Thank you. Thank you. I shall put it, sorry, somebody like to move, what do we have? Moved Councillor Winmar, seconded Deputy Mayor. Councillor Winmar, do you wish to speak on the item? Deputy Mayor? Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. There is nothing on item 19, 20, 21. Item 22, reports of elected members. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Your Worship. I've had to wear my suit quite a number of times in the last couple of days. It's very, very busy times. I attended the Senior Citizens meeting on Monday with a brand new committee, which is quite good. They seem quite refreshed and revigorated. I then attended in the afternoon, along with yourself and Councillor S. Wood, a workshop at the Senior Citizens with the Savvy Seniors and a number of city officers to discuss issues in relation to seniors in the community. I then, on Tuesday, on your behalf, emceed the launch of a book called Baby Ways, which has been translated into Noongar language, and it is now called Marwit Mart, or that's the translated version. Did I say that right, Councillor Winmar? And we had the Honourable David Temperman, Minister for Culture and the Arts, attend along with the State Librarian, and alongside Minister Temperman, Fran Winden, the Aboriginal play leader at Bright Futures, actually read the book to a group of children from the Aboriginal playgroup. It was a great morning, very well attended, and every child that attended the playgroup was given a pack by the State Library with all these books and a copy of the book. And I also attended along with yourself, Councillors Kearney and Councillor Brown and Councillor Rouse the Lyric Awards, and I'm sure other councillors will have a little more to say. Maybe Councillor Brownie's pre-prepared statement, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Winmar.
Thank you, Worship. I too would like to report that it was a busy period, and it was a great opportunity to get out to all the sectors and community to be able to undertake these events. Had the Cuppa with a Cop on Saturday the 11th. Did the Bullamurra Many Hands group, which I chaired for that day. We also had the Audit and Risk Committee. Also like to make note, I had the pleasure to be invited to the Senior Citizens Lunch on Elder Abuse Day and spend lunch with a few of the elders and had a few conversations around the amount of history in the actual room and some of those residents, long-term residents, that still like to come back to Kwinana and reminisce. Also on the Thursday the 16th, attended the Winter Wonderland Sundowner event, which was very good to see small local businesses and their families attend that event and partake. I must say that it was very well received, and pass my congratulations on to the officers for executing a very well attended event. On Friday, was invited to the 15 years of Peter Carnley Anglican Community School Founders Day. I remember growing up younger, and I had fond memories of running through the bush up there, and it's 15 years has passed by in the blink of an eye, but it was an honour and a privilege to be there and represent the city in the capacity that I was available. And it would then led on to an opportunity for the Peter Carnley Anglican Community School, the commissioning of the All Saints Grace Chapel, Your Worship, and that was also a well-attended event. Just out of interest, I would like it known for our residents and members of City of Kwinana that the official NAIDOC event this year commences on Sunday the 3rd of July, the National NAIDOC event. And as has been customary for the City of Kwinana, key community Aboriginal groups in Kwinana organise a group to ensure that culture and tradition is given and put on display in its best form and manner to the rest of the wider community. And I would like to just touch on the opening event, which is on Monday the 27th from 10 o'clock, and it's at Medina Hall. There are events that are going to be conducted all during that week, and it's an opportunity for Aboriginal organisations within the City of Kwinana to showcase the richness and the history of the Aboriginal people and connection with the City of Kwinana, and also those organisations that support those organisations and the families which we service. I encourage people to go to the City of Kwinana Facebook page. There'll be details further in relation to that event, and also the City of Kwinana website, which gives a more detailed event of activities that are being conducted for all communities throughout that week. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Can I just clarify something, and I'm not being flippant at all, but I just want to, for the purpose of the record, you didn't go to an Elder Abuse Day, you went to a prevention or a awareness day of elder abuse.
Yeah,
Just
sorry,
for
Your Worship,
those.
clarity on that. It was an event that was simultaneously organised on Elder Abuse Day, but it was
Thank you.
in relation to the clarification that which you sort of on. So thank you very much.
Make sure that the minutes are reflected well. Thank you. Councillor D. Wood.
I thought he was just getting into practice. As you know, I haven't been here for a few weeks, but I have been reading the agendas and doing all that sort of stuff at home. But I want to make one minor comment about tonight's agenda. We are not a shire anymore. Thank you.
I'm sure it'll be noted and probably. That's okay. Other than that, it's a very good, well put together agenda. and I commend the officers. Thank you, Councillor Rouse.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I too attended on Saturday the 11th of June, Copper with the Cop at Bulrush Park, along with Councillor Widmar. Councillor Widmar was between other gigs and wearing his suit. I was on the way to the footy, so I was wearing my Hawthorn gear. So yes, bit of chalk and cheese there. Monday the 13th, as well, attended the Bullamara Advisory Group with yourself and Councillor Widmar, Your Worship, and that was held at the MAC this time, which was a nice change of venue. Always good to get out and about within the community. Tuesday the 14th of June, I chaired the Local Emergency Management Committee, and happy to report that there was no incidents or major incidents to be reported by those agencies. Always good to hear. Winter Wonderland on the Thursday the 16th of June. Wonderful event, fantastic setting, beautiful weather, always makes a difference, and I'd like to commend the staff for all the hard work they put in before and during and after the event. So the PCAX Founders Day, and I again commend Councillor Widmar for his performance there. PCAX now is embracing the reconciliation and is taking full advantage of Councillor Widmar's talents. Just to look on the faces of the students there, watching Councillor Widmar play the didge and read out Noongar language was pretty sensational, being a parent of the school myself. On Saturday the 18th of June, I attended the Revitalise the Strand presentation by David Enwich. David's a world-renowned placemaker, and he presented to about 30 community members, took us up for a walk around the Strand. This is all in part for the revitalisation of the Strand project, RAC-funded project for the city. Came up with some great ideas. I believe he also presented to city staff and directors during the week. So hopefully, with the directors and the officers knowing knowing full well what David is trying to achieve in these spaces, and the community to get on board as well, hopefully it'll be a really valuable outcome for the community of the village at Wellard to produce the best possible with the RSC funds. Monday the 20th of June, I attended with yourself, Your Worship, well, via electronic means, the JDAP meeting and considered the childcare centre on Bertram Road in Wellard, which was approved. Yes, as well with the chapel dedication as well at PCAX. I'd like to pass on the thanks to the principal, Felicity House of PCAX. It's a long journey for Peter Carnley, many years in fact, and the building process was a drawn-out process, as everything is at the current state in time. But they would like to thank the city and the staff for working with them to produce what I think we would agree being in there is a wonderful facility, and will be of benefit to the whole wider Kwinana area. And of course, the 22 Lyric Award ceremony, which I'll hand over to Councillor Brown. I don't want to steal his thunder, so thank you, Your Worship.
Can I just clarify, just because I've written the same thing in relation to the dedication of Grace Chapel. Is it the All Saints Grace Chapel at Peter Carnley? It's not actually the Peter Carnley's Grace Chapel. They spoke about that at the. So we might just need to clarify, because I did the same.
Yeah, so Grace Chapel, I believe, All Saints Parish.
All Saints Parish. Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, since our last ordinary council meeting, I was pleased to take part in a familiarisation tour of BP's facilities in the Kwinana industrial area, alongside fellow council members and city representatives. On the tour, there was a key focus on the company's plans for a hydrogen hub, which brings together a unique combination of existing infrastructure at the site, increasing market demand, and takes advantage of the unique synergies that exist in the Kwinana industrial area. I'll also say that it's just another example of our local region playing a crucial role in the world's shift to sustainable energy, an issue considered top of mind for many of our residents here in Kwinana. And I'll note, I believe there was an announcement a few days ago around funding for that project. I'll echo Councillor Rouse's comments here. I also recently joined in on the Revitalise the Strand Community Workshop in Wellard, where city representatives, councillors and local community members came together to brainstorm ways to create a vibrant central hub in Wellard Village, which was led by David Enquist, who is a world-renowned guru of breathing life into town centres. I think it was a super valuable session with lessons learned that can be applied not only into the area of Wellard, but also to other areas across our city. And last night, it was a real privilege to attend the City of Kwinana's Lyric Award ceremony for 2022, where fellow councillors, our city teams, and the local community were again wowed by the significant achievements of some of our youngest residents. I think you really couldn't help but walk away from this event feeling so proud of our young people, and I would like to take this opportunity to say another huge congratulations to our winners and all of those residents who were nominated for an award on the night. There's no doubt our community will be in good hands as these young leaders grow up and continue to do amazing things here in Kwinana and on the global stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Wood.
I performed all those duties required of me and attended several meetings. I also attended the BP tour along with several other councillors, which was very enlightening, and I felt very happy about their plans for the future. I also attended a business after hours, which was quite innovative in that the business owners plus their families were invited to attend. It was a successful event with an amount of productive networking occurring. Many business owners informed the council officers of their appreciation towards this innovative meeting. I also attended the Savvy Seniors Workshop held at the Senior Citizens Building after a brainstorming session on how to improve the attendance, along with yourself and Councillor Peter, Deputy Mayor. After a brainstorming session on how to improve the attendance and the outcomes in performance of the senior citizens, it was quite good. Many new and original ideas were put forward, and many interesting and productive initiatives should come out of these ideas to the betterment of seniors in Kwinana.
Thank you. Councillor Kearney.
I attended quite a few of the same, so I won't go on about that. I did attend the senior prevention last week. It was great. We were sitting at our table. They were all discussing ways of getting all the senior groups to contact each other with what each of them do. The Aboriginal group, we had Cindy there who was saying, so they're looking at trying to get a newsletter going up each month so that they can, because they don't get on the net or computer, so they want to do a newsletter each month, what each group is doing, so that they can attend all the functions or various functions. So there's a lot of interaction with all the seniors, which I thought was really great. So hopefully we can get that going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no answers to previous questions. Mayoral announcements. I've been to most of the events that others have spoken about tonight, and I'll just touch upon those that you may not have or expand a little bit further on those you have. The CEO and I convened a meet and greet with the new Kwinana Police OIC Senior Sergeant Amber Harvey. A really enthusiastic officer, and look forward to engaging with her and the Kwinana Police over her time in that position. And with the CEO, I attended a meeting at Parliament House with Minister Rhys Whitby, MLA, in his capacity as the Environment Minister, where we spoke about the waste strategies three bin implementation that is requiring councils to implement the 3 bins by 2025, and just talking about how that impacts on councils such as us and several others who have pre-existing contracts, and speaking about the opportunity for even an extension of time or to have some kind of a special waiver. So he was taking that on board, I'm sure. And we also spoke about the surplus land on the Kwinana Village Primary School site, which was to be the senior school, and how the city can work with the department, which has now had it, it's changed to, is it recreation? There's been an amendment to the land, and how we can use that land for public purpose or for recreation, opposed to more homes in that area. So I think that would be a great outcome if we can achieve that. With Deputy Mayor Councillor Rouse, myself attended the annual Bushfire Brigade's awards dinner. it's noted that this is the 60th year anniversary of the Mandogla Bushfire Brigade, and on Friday night, Steve Treby, a long-time former captain of the Mandogla Brigade, was awarded his 50-year service medal. It's an absolutely incredible achievement of commitment to the Kwinana community and beyond, because statistics were given out in relation to the amount of incidents that they have, that both brigades have attended in Kwinana, and a majority also being called upon outside of Kwinana. In addition to Steve Treby's 50-year service medal, his son Craig Treby, carrying on the family tradition, who is now the captain of the Mandogla Brigade, 25-year service medal, and a Mr Bill Rowe, 20-year service medal. In Kwinana South, Dave Mooner received both a 25-year national medal and a 25-year service medal. Bert Balawawick, a 25-year national medal, and Ed Mooner, the brigade captain, and his wife Tracy, 20-year service medal. So absolutely, it was a really great night, and please pass on my thanks to the staff who worked there and who organised the event. I think it was really well received. Just in relation to the official dedication and blessing of the All Saints Peter Carnley Grace Chapel by the Most Reverend Kay Goldsworthy, the Archbishop of Perth, it was a beautiful service, and the chapel is really stunning, and it was the first, I suppose, public building which had embraced our public art contribution policy. So inside the chapel was stained glass or coloured glass. When you see the chapel, you'll see the beautiful glass, but as you walk into the chapel, in the arbour area, I suppose you'd call it, this beautiful swirled piece of art, which was their contribution, but it actually flowed through then to the beautiful furniture that was used or is used inside the chapel. So I'm sure in due course you may be there for, as they say, a hatch, a match or a dispatch. So please take note. They were not my words, by the way. I think it might have been the Reverend's words. Thank you. Yeah. I attended the Oh My God Fringe Festival. Just like to again thank the staff for the selection of performances. I think they catered for all ages. And I went on Saturday night and I took some friends from outside the city of Kwinana, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. Some of them hadn't been to Kwinana before, and they were really blown away with the facilities that we had at the Clini Arts Centre. So that was really good feedback for us. I had a very difficult job judging the City of Kwinana photographic competition yesterday. Some really great, amazing nominations, and this year's theme was the City of Trees. So the award winners for the junior, children's junior and senior category will be announced by myself on Friday afternoon. And some wonderful news this afternoon. I just had it confirmed that I can say it publicly. The CEO received advice from the RAC earlier this afternoon of funding to the tune of $85,000 towards our junior safety bike area in Callista. So it's the delivery of the bike, commitments to, so it's $85,000 towards the delivery of the bike skills track in Callista, and $10,000 towards a child engagement activity. And I think the genesis from that funding, the discussion came from I think it was our CEO initiated a discussion with personnel from RAC and from Little Things, Big Things Grow. And that's just an absolutely great boost. It means that we can now complete the whole project in one rather than carrying over, seeking additional funding. It's going to be a wonderful space to complement our youth precinct that's coming together there on Callista Oval. And again, I attended the Lyric Awards. I've listed all the award winners. A lot of time and effort went into the nominations. I think there was 58 or 59 nominees this year, really top quality nominees, and I'd like to do a special congratulations to the Young Person of the Year, Martha Reeves. I have listed in entirety why Martha had achieved the award. I won't read it out other than to say very, very worthy recipient, and I'd like to thank both Councillor Rouse and Councillor Brown, who I understood sat on the panel and had that very hard job of trying to pick out the winners from such a large field. Again, thank you to the staff and also to Alcoa and Coogee Chemicals, who have been the sponsors going into the 16th year. So that's a wonderful commitment to the betterment of the young people in our community who are being noticed for the positive initiatives that they do within our area. So those are my announcements. I am happy to table. We have no confidential items, and therefore I'm very pleased to close the meeting at 6:54 p.m. Thank you.